Hi class, good afternoon. Today we're going to be doing one of our flipped assignment classrooms, okay? This is going to be based off the phases of the moon. And since we are second grade, I'm going to be basing it off this teak, okay? It's basically saying the students know that there is recognizable patterns in the natural world among objects in the sky. The student, which is you, is expected to observe, describe, and record patterns of objects in the sky, including appearances of the moon. And that's exactly what we're going to be learning about. I know the past couple of weeks we've been going over the solar system, the sun, the moon, the earth, how it orbits, how it revolves around each other, and the different kinds of planets that are among us. So today I wanted to base this lesson strictly on the phases of the moon, get you a little familiar with it tonight, so tomorrow you're ready to go, because we have a lot of 2 assignments that we're going to do, but they're going to be pretty lengthy. But I'm excited for you all to learn the patterns and stages of the moon, because we live among it in our everyday lives. The phases of the moons roughly go about a month, so about 28-day cycle, and then it repeats itself over and over and over. And I want you to get familiar with that. That's so cool, okay? So your learning objectives for today. After we complete this assignment, I expect you all to be able to observe and understand the changing patterns and the moon's appearance during the phases, okay? So, as I said, those 2 assignments we're going to do tomorrow, they're going to kind of get you familiarized with them, and you're going to knock this one right out. Demonstrate and correctly illustrate and recite the directions of the moon phases and the positions to the earth and the sun. I'm going to explain that one in just one moment, okay? So you can kind of get familiar with what it is. Also, you're going to identify and correctly match the vocabulary terms to the phases of the moon. So basically it's saying everything we're going to go over today. On Friday we're going to get a review. We're going to do a review on Thursday. And then Friday we'll have our test. Or I might change it to maybe do a review tomorrow. Then our test on Thursday, kind of knock it out. We'll just see how we go. But it's only the 8 terms, and the sentences won't be too in depth. Just something to where the definitions. I just want to make sure you can match it correctly, and then just to prepare you for next year. So if you look at the first picture, which is this one, you're gonna see how, remember I explained that the moon orbits the earth every month. And sometimes between that orbit, as you can see in this picture, you see new moon. New moon is directly between the sun and the earth. So think of the moon as a circle, right? And because sometimes we only see half that circle, it's gonna affect the appearance we see from Earth. So if you see, just look at new moon, okay? Let's just focus just on this. New moon, as I said, is directly between the Earth and the sun. So if you see let's divide half that circle up. As you can see, the bright and the dark side. Half of that is directly facing the sun. So from the sun's point of view, it's luminous, it's bright, it's big, it's full. Well, to us on Earth, we just see a dark circle. Sometimes we don't see anything. So as of now, when a new moon comes in the beginning of the month, that's exactly what we're going to see, a big old circle of nothing. Okay? And then, I'm going to show you that the moon goes counterclockwise. So it doesn't go like a traditional clock where it goes this way. It actually goes this way, okay? So then right after new moon, it's a waxing crescent. And then a first quarter, and then it is a waxing gibbous, and then it is a full moon, then it is a winding gibbous, a last quarter moon, a waxing crescent, and then it repeats itself all over. And here's a better illustration of that, because you can kind of see the actual shapes, whereas this you're just seeing halves. Half, it doesn't really justify it. You're just seeing half bright, half dark, where here you see everything. You know, you're going to see what a full moon looks like, what a waxing crescent looks like, what a first quarter, waxing gibbous moon, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, and then a waning crescent. And you see how as it moves counterclockwise, which is, I can't see my finger, which is this way, okay? No, I'm sorry, this way, you're going to see how, like, as we move through, as the moon moves through the Earth's orbit, it's going to kind of move away from the sun and more to the Earth, so where the light hits it better. Okay? So, phases. What is a phase, right? What are the phases, actually? The phases are the moon revolves around the Earth every month from east to west motion. So that's counterclockwise, remember? So the different stages of the moon represents where you are on Earth and the orbit time frame of the moon's phases. So as I said before, it's a monthly thing. So the first month's always going to be a new moon, and then full moon is always in the middle of the month, and then so on and so forth. So you can always tell if you say you don't know the date and you look at the moon, you're like, hey, it's a waxing crescent. So, waning crescent. So that means it's almost the end of the month. So that means we're getting ready for a new month, right? And what's at the end of this month? Thanksgiving. So let's look out for that. Let's look out more for a winding gibbous, okay? Let me focus this better for you all. So there are 8 stages between it, and basically a phase also is how, in scientific terms, it's how the sun shines on the moon during the orbit around the Earth. So first one is a new moon, a waxing crescent, a first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last, and waxing crescent, waning crescent. I didn't say that, so we're good. Okay, so these are what illustrations are. You kind of see it looks like I'm outside, right, with the way the new moon looks. Okay, so I kind of broke them down from waning, waxing, gibbous, quarter, and new, full moon. So the new moon always is in the beginning of the month, and it's basically its form and we cannot see it, so always remember that. Full moon is around the 15th or the middle of the month, to where it's 100% luminous, and I feel like I'm outside because it's so bright. Like, this is exactly what you see when you go outside sometimes. It's not as bright as the sun. Sorry, the focus of this is not that great. Oh, it's zooming out, sorry. But it's just one big circle. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is the quarter moons, where the moon is half bright during the orbit but appears on the opposite, and sometimes it appears on the opposite side. So the first quarter is right after a waxing crescent, which is right after a new moon. So it basically, you can see they're kind of opposite to one another, but this is just basically showing you that the bright side is ready to come out and the dark side is moving away. So now it's literally the bright time to shine. Whereas the last quarter moon is right after a waning crescent, which means that the moon has already done its cycle for the full moon, where it's big old bright, beautiful, big star. And the brightness, it's already, it's had its fun, but now the darkness is going to come and take over, okay? A waxing moon is, always remember this, because there's 2 on each part of the cycle and 2 waning. The bright part of it, of the moon, is getting brighter during the orbit. So this is right after a new moon, which is the first stage. So if you see it, it's like the perfect kind of moon, what we all know in books and stuff. It's getting ready to get bright, and the darkness, it's kind of moving out of its way. The waxing gibbous is right after a first moon, which means it's half of that moon that we saw earlier, and it's getting ready to form into a full moon, which is that bright part. So these are like just remember, these two stages are always going to be where it's about to shine. Basically, the full moon's coming out, okay? Before we get into crescent and gibbous, I'm just going to give you a brief definition. A crescent moon is always going to be a small portion of the moon is always bright. So remember that little moon I told you, little perfect moon? That's kind of those are what crescents look like. Whereas gibbous, it's the larger portion of the moon will always be bright. So it's kind of where it's going to first start to be bright, and right before, it's going to be bright right before the new moon, where the darkness is going to take over, okay? Where the shadow is not going to reflect light anymore. It's going to reflect dark. So just a little brief summary. So waning moons. It means that the bright side is slowly getting smaller, so it's going to become dull. This is a crescent. Remember I said it's like the perfect little moon, and then this is like the brighter side of the moon that's getting ready to cover. So I like to think of this is right before a new moon, which is right when it's like a big old dark circle. I like to think of the way that I want you all to remember is, you see this moon right here? You see how perfect the waxing crescent looks like a moon? And you see the darkness that's already covering majority of it, and then by the next phase, it's going to be a new moon. I like to think of this as a goodbye moon, that you know that the stage is already done and it's going to start again until where it's going to be covered. Whereas this one is right after a full moon, so this is right after where it's all big, bright, and beautiful, and you see a little of the shadow peeking in. So just remember that its time of shining is over, and the darkness is coming, and then this is the stage, 2 stages after. So you see that how it's kind of covering it already. And this is my moon links, as I call them. These are just cool links that I would love you all to review for me. Let me get my mouse, one moment. This one is a moon song. Let's see. Let it load. Not this. Let's see. It's just a moon song that I really want you all to like review. I think it'll be really cool and cute for you all. It just shows you about the phrases of the moon. We're going to be listening to it a lot tomorrow, so I just want you to get familiar with it. And then this one is an actual demonstration of the moon's orbit and the phases of them all. It goes into real good detail. We're going to review it tomorrow for those who are unable to look at it today. So don't worry, but it'd just be cool for you to do so. And tomorrow our 2 activities will be, we're going to use Oreos to do the phases of the moon. So we get to eat them. How exciting. And then we're also going to do, it's the full moon, a new moon. No, it's okay. We're going to do this paper plate cutout, and it's basically going to pretend like you're actually going through the phases, and you can move it around to see like what the next phase is and what time of the month that usually happens. So come tomorrow with your listening and learning minds, and we're gonna go over everything. Okay, so y'all have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.